the video. And it looks like you've been going deep on some theories about American history. And it seems like there's this idea of a hostile takeover of the government.
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack there.
Intense stuff. So what if the oath of office, we always see this as a formality.
Yeah.
What if it's actually like this key marker of legitimacy?
Yeah.
And what if that legitimacy has been like completely compromised? These sources suggest that all kinds of events from JFK's assassination to like present day stuff are all part of this bigger struggle between like a corrupt elite and the American people.
Yeah, it's a really compelling narrative.
Yeah.
The sources claim that this hostile takeover has been happening for decades.
Wow.
And they point to things like the creation of the Federal Reserve back in 1913, the Emergency Banking Relief Act of 1933, and even JFK's assassination as evidence. They say that these events were orchestrated by powerful forces to seize control of the government and undermine its legitimacy.
And they name some specific groups as being behind this, right?
Yes, they do.
Sounds like something out of a conspiracy thriller.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
The sources point to secret societies like Skull and Bones,
Okay.
powerful financial institutions like the Federal Reserve, and even like a shadowy international cabal.
Oh, wow.
They claim that these groups installed figures who never even took a legitimate oath of office.
Oh, wow.
Meaning their authority is basically void.
So they're saying there's this shadow government like pulling the strings.
Yeah.
And the people in official positions are just puppets.
I know, like that, yeah.
But how does Donald Trump fit into all of this?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The sources present Trump's presidency as this pivotal moment in the fight against this alleged corruption.
Yeah.
They actually claim that he was selected by the military to expose the truth and dismantle this illegitimate power structure.
Selected by the military.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, what does that even mean?
Are they suggesting like a military coup?
Not exactly a coup. I mean, it's more like a behind-the-scenes role for the military.
Okay.
They're saying that the military is aware of this hostile takeover and is working to restore like legitimate governance. They see Trump as their like chosen instrument for this mission.
Wow.
They even point to the increased military presence at his inauguration as a sign of their support.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
We have this alleged hostile takeover.
Right.
A shadowy elite like controlling the government
Yeah.
and Trump being chosen by the military to fight back.
Yeah.
It sounds like a wild action movie plot.
It really does.
But do these sources offer any concrete solutions?
They do. Like, what are they suggesting people do about this? Well, they actually lay out 7 key strategies for reclaiming national sovereignty. Some are legal.
It's like the Brunson case, which attempts to challenge the legitimacy of officials based on the claim that they haven't taken a valid oath of office.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then they also advocate for education and raising awareness, encouraging community action, and promoting a more self-sufficient lifestyle to break free from dependence on the system.
So it's a mix of legal challenges, grassroots activism, and personal empowerment.
Yeah.
It sounds like a pretty comprehensive approach.
Yeah, it is.
What about the financial aspect? You mentioned the Federal Reserve earlier. What role did they play in all of this?
The sources see the Federal Reserve as like a key tool of the illegitimate power structure. They believe it's used to manipulate the economy, extract wealth from the people, and maintain control.
Yeah.
They argue that reclaiming national sovereignty involves seizing control of the Federal Reserve.
Wow.
And establishing a new people-benefiting financial system. It sounds like they're calling for a complete overhaul of the financial system.
Yeah.
But how do they envision replacing it?
That's where the concept of tribal law comes into play.
Tribal law.
Yeah.
Okay.
The sources advocate for a return to the original Constitution and a system of governance based on what they call tribal law.
Okay.
They see this as a way to dismantle the existing power structure and return power to the people.
Tribal law.
Yeah.
That's a term I haven't heard before in this context.
Yeah, it's a little bit out there.
What exactly do they mean by that?
Well, it's not entirely clear, and the sources are a bit vague on the specifics.
Okay.
However, they seem to be referencing a system of governance that is rooted in pre-colonial traditions, emphasizing community, self-sufficiency, and a closer connection to nature.
So it's a rejection of the modern state and a return to a more localized, traditional way of life.
That seems to be the gist of it.
It's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
And that's where the YouTube video you sent comes in.
Right.
It goes even deeper into these concepts and offers some more dramatic claims.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
Yeah.
What kind of claims are we talking about?
So the video goes into more detail about the alleged role of secret societies.
Okay.
Claiming that they orchestrated events like JFK's assassination to further their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
They also claim that the U.S. has been declared an occupied territory.
An occupied territory?
Yeah.
By who?
That's not exactly clear.
It was getting pretty wild.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The video doesn't explicitly say who is occupying the U.S.
Okay.
But it suggests that powerful forces are working against the interests of the American people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another element that's even more out there.
Oh, yeah.
They talk about a coming solar flare that will play a significant role in raising consciousness and even upgrading humanity.
A solar flare that upgrades humanity?
Yeah, it's a lot.
So we're all going to develop superpowers or something?
That's what they seem to be implying.
Wow.
The video presents this solar flare as a catalyst for a global awakening, a shift to a new era that will involve financial reckoning, the dissolution of existing power structures, and this return to tribal governance.
Wow, it sounds like they're predicting a complete transformation of society.
It's pretty radical vision.
It's certainly a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But before we dive into the implications of all of this, I think it's important to take a step back and consider these claims critically.
Definitely a good idea.
So, listener, we've laid out the basic framework of this hostile takeover theory. We've explored the alleged players, your motivations, and their proposed solutions. But now it's time to dig deeper.
Okay.
To examine these claims more closely and consider their implications.
I'm ready when you are.
All right.
Let's do it. So as we dig deeper into this narrative, I think it's important to approach these claims with a healthy dose of critical thinking.
Of course, of course.
It's easy to get swept up in a compelling story.
Absolutely.
Especially one that taps into our anxieties about power and control.
For sure.
But it's crucial to separate fact from speculation.
That's a great point. So how do we do that?
Well,
how do we navigate this information landscape?
Right.
And figure out what's credible and what might be misleading or even harmful?
It starts with asking questions.
Okay.
Who are the people putting forth this information? What are their backgrounds, their motivations?
Yeah.
Are they presenting all the evidence or just cherry-picking information that supports their narrative?
Right, right.
Are there alternative explanations for the events they cite?
So it's not just about accepting or rejecting the information outright, but about engaging with it critically.
Exactly.
And asking these probing questions.
Yeah.
It sounds like a pretty active process.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's where research comes in.
Okay.
Don't just rely on one source or one perspective.
Right.
Seek out a variety of viewpoints, even those that challenge your own assumptions.
Yeah.
By examining the evidence from different angles, we can start to form a more balanced and informed opinion.
That makes sense. So let's apply this critical lens to some of the key elements we've discussed so far.
Yeah.
For example, the sources put a lot of emphasis on the oath of office.
Right.
As this central pillar of legitimacy. But practically speaking, isn't the oath more of a formality?
Well, legally speaking, you're right. It is largely symbolic.
Yeah.
But symbols can hold immense power.
Right.
Especially when they're connected to our fundamental beliefs about authority and responsibility.
Okay.
In this case, the sources are using the oath as a litmus test for legitimacy.
So they're arguing that if someone hasn't taken the oath or hasn't taken it in a way that they deem valid, then their authority is illegitimate. And that this lack of legitimacy applies not just to individuals, but to the entire system.
Precisely.
Wow.
And this argument resonates because it taps into a core principle of democratic governance.
Okay.
The consent of the governed.
Right.
If the people haven't genuinely consented through the process of electing someone who then takes the oath, then the government's authority, according to this theory, is fundamentally flawed.
I see. So it's not just about the legalistic interpretation of the oath.
Right.
It's about using it as a symbol to challenge the very foundation of the government's authority.
Exactly.
That's a pretty powerful argument.
It is.
And it helps explain why they focus so heavily on figures like JFK and Trump.
Right.
They portray JFK's assassination as this symbolic turning point.
Yeah.
Where this alleged hostile takeover gained momentum, like a moment where the real America, the one that honored the oath and its principles, was fatally wounded.
And then Trump is presented as this almost messianic figure, chosen to resurrect that real America and restore its lost legitimacy.
It's a pretty compelling narrative.
Very compelling. And it speaks to a deep longing for authentic leadership.
Right.
Someone who can stand outside the corrupt system and fight for the people.
But their critique goes beyond individuals.
Right.
They also target institutions, particularly the Federal Reserve, as being tools of this alleged illegitimate power structure.
The Federal Reserve, with its complex operations and somewhat opaque nature, becomes an easy target for suspicion and distrust.
Right.
It embodies a lot of people's fears about financial manipulation, concentrated power, and the potential for economic exploitation.
So in their view, it's not enough to just replace the individuals in power.
No.
They're calling for a complete dismantling of the system itself, a system they see as inherently corrupted and rigged against the people.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to this idea of tribal law and the desire for a more localized traditional form of governance.
I'm still a bit fuzzy on what they mean by tribal law.
It seems like they're advocating for a return to a pre-colonial system of governance.
Right.
But how would that work in practice?
Yeah.
Could such a system really function in a modern, complex society?
It's difficult to say for sure. The sources are quite vague on the specifics of how this tribal law system would operate.
Okay.
However, based on their broader arguments, it seems to represent a rejection of the modern state, a longing for a simpler, more authentic way of life where power is decentralized and communities are more self-governing.
So it's about reclaiming power from these large impersonal institutions and returning it to the people at a more local level.
That seems to be the core idea.
Okay.
And it ties into a broader trend we see in many populist and anti-establishment movements, a rejection of globalization and a yearning for a more rooted, localized sense of identity and community.
It's interesting how they link this desire for a simpler past with the idea of a coming awakening.
Yeah.
The YouTube video, as you mentioned, talks about a solar flare that will somehow upgrade humanity. It sounds like a blend of science fiction, spirituality, and revolutionary rhetoric.
It's a potent mix, and it speaks to a deep longing for transformation, for a radical shift in consciousness that will usher in a new era of peace, justice, and harmony.
It's a hopeful vision.
It is.
But it also raises some questions.
Of course.
What if this awakening doesn't happen as they predict?
Right.
Or what if it takes a different form than they imagine?
Yeah, what happens then?
Could this lead to disillusionment?
Yeah.
Or even more extreme reaction?
Those are important questions to consider.
Yeah.
When people invest their hope in a single event or a specific outcome, it can create a lot of vulnerability.
Okay.
If those expectations aren't met, it can lead to disappointment, anger, and a sense of betrayal.
So it's about balancing hope with a healthy dose of realism and critical thinking.
Absolutely.
We can be open to new possibilities without losing our ability to question and evaluate the information we're encountering.
Exactly.
So where does this leave our listener?
Right.
What do we hope they take away from this deep dive into a worldview that frankly presents some pretty radical and unsettling ideas?
I'd say the key takeaway is this. Cultivate a sense of curiosity, a willingness to question, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to explore challenging ideas, to delve into narratives that push you outside your comfort zone, but do so with a critical and discerning mind.
Okay.
Ask tough questions.
Yeah.
Seek out diverse perspectives and remember that the journey of understanding is ongoing.
That's a good point.
There's always more to learn.
Right.
More to uncover.
Yeah.
More to question.
So, listener, we've explored this theory of a hostile takeover in more depth.
We have.
We've examined the key claims, the proposed solutions, and the potential pitfalls. But it's important to remember that this is just one interpretation of events.
Right.
One lens through which to view history and current affairs.
What resonates with you? What do you question? Are there alternative explanations that you find more compelling?
Good question.
The goal of this deep dive isn't to provide definitive answers,
Right.
but to encourage critical thinking and thoughtful engagement with complex ideas.
And to equip you with the tools and the knowledge to continue your own exploration.
That's right now in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore the broader implications of this worldview.
Right.
What does it say about our understanding of power, history, and the potential for change?
We spent a lot of time, unpacking this whole theory of a hostile takeover.
Right.
And exploring all the different, facets of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious about the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
If we entertain these ideas, even just for the sake of discussion,
right.
What does this say about how we understand power?
That's a big one.
Yeah, how we view history and ultimately what it means to shape the future.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes us to the heart of this whole deep dive.
Right.
One of the most striking things about this whole worldview, I think, is the profound distrust it expresses toward established institutions.
Like what kind of institution?
I mean, the government, the media, the financial system,
right.
They're all painted as being compromised, as serving the interests of this elite few rather than the good of the people.
It's not just distrust, though, right?
No.
There's almost a sense of betrayal, woven into this narrative.
Sure.
It's like the real America.
Right.
The one that's founded on these, lofty ideals of freedom and self-determination.
Yeah.
It's been hijacked. And the promise of that America has been broken.
Exactly. And that feeling of betrayal can be incredibly potent.
I think so.
Especially during times of uncertainty or rapid change.
Well, sure.
When people feel like the systems they've relied on have failed them, they become more susceptible to narratives that offer radical explanations and alternative solutions.
Yeah.
Even if those solutions are based on conspiracy theories or completely untested claims.
So it's not just about the specific details of the claims, but about the underlying emotions they tap into.
Yeah, fear, disillusionment, anger, maybe even a sense of powerlessness.
And those emotions can be manipulated.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially by individuals or groups claiming to have all the answers, offering a clear enemy to blame and a simple solution to rally behind.
Yeah, it's a powerful dynamic.
It is.
Like the idea we discussed earlier about Trump being selected by the military to expose the truth and drain the swamp.
That's a powerful image.
It is.
That kind of narrative can be very seductive.
Yeah.
Particularly for people who feel marginalized or ignored by the political establishment.
For sure.
It gives them a sense of hope, a belief that someone powerful is on their side fighting for their interests.
Yeah.
But it also creates this potentially dangerous situation where anyone who questions that narrative
who expresses doubts or offers alternative perspectives is immediately branded as an enemy, part of the problem.
Yeah, it creates a very black and white us versus them mentality.
Yeah, totally.
Which can be really detrimental to open dialogue and critical thinking.
Precisely. And that kind of thinking can be incredibly corrosive to a democratic society where dissent and debate are essential for progress.
Yeah.
It's vital to remember that no one person or group has a monopoly on the truth.
Right.
And that questioning and challenging assumptions is crucial for finding meaningful solutions.
So how do we navigate this complex terrain?
Right.
How do we engage with these powerful narratives, these compelling stories, without getting swept away by, the undercurrents of fear, paranoia, or blind faith?
I think it starts with recognizing the power of stories themselves.
Okay.
We're all drawn to narratives that help us make sense of the world, that provide a framework for understanding complex events.
And our own place within them.
Right.
But it's crucial to remember that no single story encompasses the entirety of reality.
So we need to be aware of the stories we're being told, the stories we tell ourselves, and be open to exploring alternative narratives.
Yes.
Even those that challenge our existing beliefs or make us uncomfortable.
Exactly. And that requires a willingness to engage with different perspectives, to consider evidence that might contradict our assumptions, and to recognize that truth is often multifaceted and complex, rarely black and white.
So where does this leave our listener?
Yeah.
What do we hope they take away from this deep dive into a worldview that frankly presents some pretty radical and unsettling ideas?
I'd say the key takeaway is this.
Okay.
Cultivate a sense of curiosity, a willingness to question, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Good advice.
Don't be afraid to explore challenging ideas, to delve into narratives that push you outside your comfort zone, but do so with a critical and discerning mind.
Right.
Ask tough questions. Seek out diverse perspectives, and remember that the journey of understanding is ongoing.
That's a really good point.
There's always more to learn, more to uncover, more to question.
So, listener, we've taken you on quite a journey.
Yeah, we have.
This deep dive into a particular and quite provocative view of American history and power.
Very unique perspective.
It is.
Yeah.
We've explored the claims, the arguments, and some of the potential implications. But now it's your turn.
Yeah. What do you think?
What resonates with you? What do you question?
Yeah.
What further explorations will you embark on?
The deep dive, after all, is all about empowering you, the listener, to continue the journey of discovery.
It really is.
So keep questioning, keep learning, keep exploring.
Thanks for listening.